Welcome everybody to our next video in our series on computer programming for mathematics. I, as always, am Dr. Lathram, and today we will be talking about file input and output. So basically in Python, files are objects as well as everything else. So files are objects too. Now, when we create a file, we need two pieces of information about that file. So the first piece of information is the file name, of course, what we want to call the file. The second piece of information is the mode for the file. Now, what the mode does is actually tell the Python interpreter, how am I supposed to interact with this file? And so the mode commands that we would give it, we will either give it an R for saying that we want to write this file as a text file. So if you wanted to text, meaning that if you wanted to open it up in something like Word or Note or some word editor, some text editor, you could open it up and you would be able to read it. So it would just be in regular kind of ASCII characters. So if we write an R, then we're only reading from the file, but we're reading from a file as if it's a text file. We can write, so the W is we're interacting with it as a text file, but we're only writing to the file. If we write, now when we say write, if we would open the file in write mode, write to it, close the file, open the file again and write to it, writing multiple times is going to overwrite the file. And so what we want to do, if we want to preserve the information that's already there in the file, then we would want to open it in append mode. And so append mode is still doing in as a text file, but now we're just appending whatever new that we're writing to the end of the existing file. We can do read and write, and so in one file, again interacting with it as a text file, or we can interact with the file in terms of binary, so just ones and zeros, if we want to interact with it that way. Those are kind of the same attributes, but we add a B onto the end of it to say that yes, we're reading and writing in binary mode. And so read binary, we're only reading. Write binary, we're only writing. We're not appending. We can append in binary mode, and we can read, write, and append, read, write in binary mode by putting the plus on the end of it. So those are kind of the mode commands that we can issue when we are creating a file. And then kind of the syntax that we'll use for creating a file. We have some variable that will point to the object that we're creating. So we're saying open, and then whatever the name of the file is as a string, and then as another string the mode that we want to read and write that file. Now when we are finished with the file and we're all done, we want to close the file, and so we have a method, the close method. So once we open the file, FP, so that's FP kind of standing for file pointer, so that's my file pointer object. Then I'm going to say for that file pointer object, just close the file. And now let's talk about file methods. So what kind of functions can we apply? Well, we can, so again, this F is going to be our file pointer, then that we've opened, again at a previous point. We can write, and we can hand it a particular string, and it'll write the string to the file. We can read a line, so if the file is open, then what read line with the open and close parentheses, that will read characters from the file, so it's going to read until it encounters a new line character. So once it sees, okay, here's where the line actually stops, I'm going to stop reading at that point, and it will just return you the string that's going to be that read line. Then read lines. So if we want to read all of the lines in the entire file just in one fell swoop, then it's going to return each one of those. It's going to return us a list, and each entry in the list will be a line in the file, which is pretty handy sometimes. And then finally, if we're kind of doing things, reading things from binary, then we want to read a total of n particular bytes from the file. Then that's our just plain read, and the attribute n tells us how many bytes that we want to read from that file. All right, so let's look at an example problem that we want to do. So in this, we want to calculate the first power, second power, third power, and fourth power for all of the integers from 1 to 100, and we want to write them to a CSV file, so a comma-separated value file, called powers. And the way that we want the output to go, we want one line for each integer, and we want the particular power separated by commas, hence comma separated value. It's a wonderful kind of generic form for data to be transferred, a CSV file. So it's kind of a standard go-to thing. So as you encounter CSV files, comma separated values, typically that's what you're going to open in things like Microsoft Office or Microsoft Excel or something like that, some kind of spreadsheet. They love CSV files. And so we want the outputs to look something like for the integer 2, 2, 4, 8, 16, the integer 3, 3, 9, 27, 81, and so on and so on and so on. And so let's see if we can go over to idle, write a script that's going to do that for us. Okay, so here we are in idle. Let's see if we can write a script that's going to solve this particular problem. Okay, so we want to write all of the integers, all of the powers of the integers, so the first 4 powers of the integers, from 1 to 100. So that sounds like we need a loop. And so let's do a loop. All right, so we say, how far do we want to go? Well, let's say we want to go up to, we'll start with just 10 to do that. So for I in range, and the range going from starting at 1 and going up to n plus 1, just like before. So now it'll give us the integers from 1 to 10. If we wanted to have kind of a variable for each power, we could do that. So we could say first power is just I, second power is going to be I to the second power, third I to the third power, and fourth is going to be I to the fourth power. So we've got our first 4 powers there, and now if we wanted to print that output, so let's say we want to print, and how do we want these things separated? We want them as first, second, third, and fourth. And then notice that we have here a thing that says we have what kind of separation, what kind of character do we want to separate the values that we've handed it? Well, we can say I want those separated with a comma. Okay, so right now this is just going to do it and return it to the screen for what we've done. So we've not done anything with file input output yet. Let's just see if we've kind of got our structure working for this. So we'll need to save this file. All right, so we save that file, Control S, and now if we want to run it, hit F5. Let's see what the output looks like. And there we go. So we've got all of the powers 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 3, 9, 27, 81, exactly in the format that we wanted. So now all we have to do if we wanted to go from up to 1 to 100, then we can just change the value for n. But now we wanted to write this to a file. And so if we're going to do that, let's put in a file pointer. So let's say FP for my file pointer, and I need to open this file. So I open this file, And I'm only going to write to it. I'm not going to read from it. So file, open, and what did I want to call it? I wanted them to be called powers.csv. And since I'm only writing to this file, then I will just write as W. Okay. So I now have a file pointer. So the first thing that the script is going to do is open this file pointer. And now I want to go down and the only thing that I really need to change for this file is then kind of redirecting the output. Well, where do I want that to go? Well, I wanted to write to the file FP. So instead of writing to the screen, now it's going to say I can write this to the file FP. And so this kind of allows me to all-in-one bypass the file write. I could write that with the usual fp.write. That would work, but the print function, if I'm kind of doing it in this way, it will also let me do that. So maybe we'll go back and do it both ways and see how it works. So now I go through that loop, finish that loop, and let's see, well, we're all done writing to the file, so fp.close. Okay, so we save that, we run it, let's see what happens. And doesn't look like anything happened. Doesn't look like anything happened because all of our output probably supposedly went over to this file. So if we open up the file directory, okay, so we go over and navigate to where those things are, and we see that, okay, here's my Python script that has my powers.py in it, so it's a Python script, and I've got this CSV file. So if I go over to my powers file and I say open that with a spreadsheet, what happens? It says, okay, open this thing. What happens? And voila, right there it is in my spreadsheet file that I've got all of my powers, 1, 1, 1, 1, 2, 4, 8, 16, 3, 9, 27, 81, and it's opened in my spreadsheet. So now kind of the last thing that I need to do is I wanted all of them from 1 to 100. And so all I need to do to modify that is to go back here and let's add on a 0. So if I add on a 0, run it again, and again, doesn't look like I have any output. Doesn't look like I have any output because everything got redirected to the file. And so if we go to that file again, let's move over to where it was. Just a second. I probably shouldn't have closed that out, but file IO, there it is. So it's showing up there in my directory where I wrote my script, and if I open it, then sure enough, I've got all of my integers from 1 all the way down to 100, and all listed there with their first, second, third, and fourth powers. So this kind of been the first introductory lesson for writing to a file. Let's see if we've got any other problems coming up with file operations, and until then, I will see you guys next time.